And maybe, buried beneath it all, lies an answer.
When they are right.
So I'm Sam Pribble. I'm the, I guess, mostly one-man army on this game. So I guess creative director. I don't know. It's kind of hard to give myself a role. I just do whatever needs to be done.
And we are looking at Total Chaos, which from what I've seen here is a sort of psychological survival horror first-person shooter from Trigger Happy Interactive and Apogee Entertainment.
Yeah. It's kind of a remake of a mod I made a long time ago. Something I've wanted to do for a while. And then I started working on Turbo Overkill, which was a completely different game, and it was always in the back of my mind. It's like, oh yeah, I made this mod. I'd love to go back into doing horror again. But now I finally get the chance to.
There have been quite a few first-person horror games, but we don't get one that really takes us into the immersive sort of psychological side of that very often. It's usually more in your face. It's usually more brutal or fast-paced. This game, and especially considering Total Overkill that came before it, feels drastically different from what one might expect out of a first-person shooter from a survival horror first-person shooter from first glance.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I haven't actually played a lot of psychological horror games. The first time I played Silent Hill 2, which is something, working on the mod, I drew a lot of inspiration from. But I never actually played Silent Hill until last year when the remake came out. Resident Evil, I never played it until the remake came out the year before that. Well, I think it might have been the year before that. So I haven't really played a lot of psychological horror. I've seen a lot of videos of games that I'm like, oh, okay, I want to try and do a horror game. I want to try and give it a bit more depth than just a basic, just lots of jump scares, which is all I really knew about horror games. So I watched a lot of Let's Plays on psychological horror games, and I kind of just did what I think would be cool in a horror game. But a lot of other games have done the exact same thing I've done before. So I kind of just wanted to do my own spin on it. It's complete 180 from Turbo Overkill. It's a lot slower. Turbo Overkill is just super fast, no reloads, killing monsters all the time. But this is more of a slower game. You're only fighting 2 or 3 monsters at a time, and the action is a lot slower. But it makes up for it and just being really, really freaking scary.
And I happen to notice, from some of the recent videos, and especially the demo video, there is a heavy melee aspect in this game. You don't always have a firearm on you. When you watch the video, those hits, preparing yourself for an enemy, squaring up with them, making sure that you hit, and then, dodging back in case there's more than one. Can you speak a little bit to how you design sort of the flow of combat, especially up close in this game?
Yeah, sure. So at first I wasn't going to do any combat. I just wanted to do, the early versions of the game felt a lot like a walking sim where you just go from scare to scare. And I mean, at the time when I was conceptualizing the idea of the game, that was a lot of what was being made at the time, was just a lot of, kind of games with not a lot of combat, just a lot of, just all about the scares. But I was playing a lot of, the inspiration comes from a real weird place. I was playing a lot of Dark Souls at the time. And I just loved. I mean, I was purely first-person shooter. I never played any RPGs or any games like Dark Souls before, and I was quite late to the party. But when I did play it, I got addicted to it pretty quick. Just how brutal the combat was, and how every input you put in is, you have to commit to that. So I wanted to try and replicate that kind of combat in this game, which is, I kind of wanted to make something like a Souls-like at the time. I mean, I kind of just borrowed aspects from it. I didn't go all in on it, but a lot of the combat inspiration came from that. Especially with the melee, you have the light attacks and heavy attacks and the dodging, and then I had to put guns in there because you got to have guns. But I mean, when you do find them, you can't use them a lot. The ammo is very scarce. Otherwise, if you just have guns all the time, then the whole thing becomes a bit easy.
Turbo Overkill came out in 2023, and now this game is about to come, if I'm reading correctly, in July 2025. Are there any particular lessons you learned from the development of Turbo Overkill that you've applied here in this project?
I mean, one of the big ones is testing is important. Just try and get people playing it as early as you can, even when it's not fully finished. Because I usually find that when people test games, they find stuff you never expected to find yourself. Because when I test a lot of stuff myself, but when I play the game, I just play it the same way over and over and over again. But getting testers in, especially watching that playback, gives you a fresh perspective on how a lot of people are going to play the game. You can kind of, I guess with Turbo Overkill, there was a benefit of having early access, which meant that pool of people testing the game is suddenly so much larger, and you can take in all of his feedback and you can kind of address it as you go. With this, when we're not doing early access, we're just going straight into 1.0. So testing became very important with this project. There's kind of a way I play it, and that's in my mind it's like how I think everyone's going to play it, but that's just not the reality of it. So you kind of have to account for multiple play styles. So testing is important. Having a good workflow, like a good pipeline, is good, but I don't think I hit it this time. It's still quite a mess. Like the whole process of actually making content, it's very like I can't really pull in help from other people to make levels, make art assets, because if they look at the workflow, it's just such a freaking mess. So having a good workflow is important. Something I still want to work on. Mostly just making sure testing happens quite early. Just even if it's for prototype content, for gameplay mechanics, just making sure that they hit the way that you want them to. I mean, I feel like I should have learned a lot more from Turbo Overkill working on it, but I think I'm a guy of habit. I just have habits that I had during Turbo Overkill that just haven't changed, even if it's to my detriment. But it's just the way it is, I guess.
To a certain degree, if it works.
Exactly, yeah. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And like the imagery in this game, is stark. There's a lot. Like between the creatures, like you got the like sort of supernatural sort of stalkers, but like you've also got like these multi-legged creatures that are like almost, it's hard to even figure out what they are past like terrifying nightmare fuel. Walls full of arms, and like I'm just kind of curious, like you mentioned Dark Souls a little bit, and you also mentioned that you had only played like some of the classic horrors recently. Can you speak a little bit to the inspirations for like the imagery and set and environment design and creature design?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of body horror. Like the more grotesque, the better, I think. And during the early stages of development, when I was doing the mod, I was watching a lot of videos on Cry of Fear, which is a Half-Life mod that came out quite some time ago. I never played it. I just watched Let's Plays of it, and I just love what they did with how abstract some of the monsters looked, and how it's just like a bunch of gore with legs and arms sticking out, and just all these random devices just getting stuck in. And I kind of liked that look, especially with a little minor spoilers with the game being kind of associated around like disease, and how kind of like a happy place in the player's head is kind of being corrupted by all this bad stuff. I kind of wanted to work off that and just have like it's kind of like the characters the same as the environment. It's just like a normal monster, but it's just been corrupted by its surroundings. I just love body horror stuff. I mean, I don't really concept out monsters. I kind of just like I do my 3D modeling in Blender, which is really great tool for sculpting, and I'll just like take a cube and it's like, okay, well, how messed up can I make this cube? And I'll just start like sculpting away and seeing it's like I try this, try that. There's a lot of trial and error. I have many failed monster designs that I just never thought were good enough. But I kind of just have a random thought in my head. It's like, hey, what do we stick an arm out of this guy's mouth? See what happens. So it's mostly just freestyling, really. I mean, it's pretty messed. It's from pretty messed up places, I guess. But I don't know where it comes from.
And I am curious, one part of horror that we often see, depending on the game, is like, a lot of them involve sort of like a puzzle aspect, and this game does seem kind of slowish to the point of like being methodical. Do you intend to focus in on like the action and the experience, or are there going to be sort of any puzzle solving in this one?
It was funny because the mod didn't have any puzzles on it, and so this standalone release does have puzzles, and it kind of came from me before, when I made the mod. This was before I played any classic horror games, and now that I've played the classic horror games and I'm starting work on the standalone, I'm like, okay, well, it seems to be a staple to have puzzles in these games, so maybe I should try and include a few puzzles. And at first I thought people weren't going to like it, especially people who love the mod. Like, why are there puzzles in this? They weren't the mod. But when we put the demo out, there was a puzzle in there at the beginning, and people seemed to really enjoy it. So I'm like, okay, let's try and add a few more in. So I'm trying to go for like a puzzle per level, and they're really fun to make. They're very different from anything I've made before. I've never made, there were no puzzles in Turbo Overkill. It was just like hold down, click, and shoot. So in this, it was kind of fun to just try something different. And yeah, with the action, I guess the pacing's kind of a mix between combat scenarios and exploration. And the exploration's important because you need the resources. So I guess it's kind of 50-50 exploration and combat. It can be it mostly goes at your own pace. Like when you're done with one area, you go to the next, and that's when the encounters happen. It's nothing like very rare that you'll just run into a room and it'll lock you in and throw all these monsters in and you have to kill them all. It's kind of like where you're going, you're gonna fight some monsters and say, okay, do I keep going or do I backtrack and find resources? And the levels are designed in a way where they're kind of like Dark Souls as well, where it's just quite open with shortcuts you can unlock. So you will find yourself backtracking to previous areas quite a bit.
As you mentioned, there is a demo out there. The players can check it out and give it a try and see what they think of like a short experience of the game. Is there anything like particularly surprising that you've learned since that first demo has been out in the wild and players have gotten to see?
Yeah, at first there's a lot of, self-doubt and fear because putting this out is very different from Turbo Overkill, and I thought people might look at the game expecting something faster, something that kind of works with something that fits the pace of Turbo Overkill. You look at it and it looks like there could be something like that, but when you actually sit down and play it, especially the demo, the first level is so slow. Like you don't actually get to kill anything until 20-30 minutes in. And I thought people weren't gonna enjoy it. I thought they were gonna hate it. But people who did sit down and played it, like they were patient with it, which I was really grateful for. I thought it would have turned a lot of people off, but yeah, the feedback's been really good. So, and seeing that a lot of people did make it to the end of the demo it just feels really good. It feels like we're heading in the right direction with it, and just keep going the way we're going.
And where can people find out more about Total Chaos, like when it's coming, news on the game, and like where they can expect to find it?
I think best links will be Twitter. So it's called X now for some reason. The X links, mostly Apogee especially. We also have a Discord server, so there's the Apogee server, and there's also a kind of a official one. But when you play the demo, when you reach in the main menu, there are links in there as well to all the socials, and when you finish the demo, there's also links to all the Discord servers. So those will probably be the best places.